chat and discussion about challenges that we're facing, the opportunities, the benefits, and getting you really involved as well. So I would like to say that when you make comments in the chat, please put to all panelists and attendees, because I think it's already set as just panelists. And whilst you're welcoming yourselves, please put where you're from, and also 1 or 2 words of how you're currently feeling as a parent of a teenager at the moment during this pretty unprecedented, unusual crisis that we're going through. Just to let you know that people can save the chat, because I imagine people will be coming up with ideas and suggestions and kind of coming together to support each other. When you do save the chat, please be aware that all your details can go out there. So don't be putting your email address or anything that you don't want to share with the rest of the world into the chat. So let's see, where's everyone coming from? Oh, all over the world, everywhere. Okay, I'll get someone else to tell you that in a minute. We've got India, Portugal, Costa Rica, South Africa, London, fantastic, Hong Kong. Oh, right, okay, it's gone too much. Okay, so I'd like to welcome our panelists. First off, we have Keith Gelhorn. Keith is a youth coach. He is also the founder of advocacy.org. And yeah, Keith, if you want to quickly say hello and give a brief introduction of why you're here, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Keith Gelhorn. I own Advocacy. And basically what we do is we coach neurodiverse youth and adults who live with ADHD, learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, anxiety, and any kind of co-occurring mental health challenge that impacts executive functioning, which is the ability to set a goal and end a goal and everything in between. So we primarily work with students who are in grades 7 through 12, and then post-secondary students as well. And then I've got a second division of the business that's devoted to basically career coaching and small business and entrepreneurship coaching, but all under the guise of living with a disability. And what got me into this was the fact that I got a late diagnosis of ADHD, anxiety and depression, and a learning disability in math when I was 34, and started looking for solutions, practical everyday solutions to help me in that journey, and couldn't find anything. Had done about 2.5 years of cognitive behavioral therapy, know the therapy game pretty inside and out, but there was nothing really available to me as a person with a disability to really help me on the day-to-day, and that's why I started Advocacy 8 years ago.
Thank you, Keith. And next up, Edyta, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please. I know you're a kindergarten teacher and a mum of 2 children. So, yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Edyta Wydmanski. I live in a suburb of Chicago, Illinois. I am a mom of 2 teenagers and an ESL teacher, English as a second language teacher. I was born and raised in Poland and have lived here for almost 3 decades. I am very interested in everything parenting, everything children related, and I'm happy to be here. I do have a lot of experience working with families from all over the world. The school that I teach is very diverse. We have over 30 languages spoken. So I'm very happy to be here because I see that it's truly international audience. So hopefully I'll have something important or helpful to say.
Thank you, Edyta. And we also have Nishmita, who's off camera at the moment, but she is helping me out with looking at the chat, asking questions that come through. So do feel free to ask questions and we'll try and answer them, have a conversation about them as we go along. Also, we have a LinkedIn page. It's entitled Parenting with a Coaching Mindset. Do join us. Any questions that we don't manage to answer within this hour and a half that we have with you, we'll try and answer them on LinkedIn. So do get on there. Also, before I introduce Rachid and myself, this is part of a bigger series. We are going to be running a youth program soon. We're kind of haven't finished the name of it yet, but it's going to be Youth Life and Leadership Training. Free course for young people aged 15 to 19. So hopefully that'll be coming in the near future. We'll hopefully be having some webinars as well for young people and just all around young people and parents. Okay, so I'm also going to introduce Rachid Choaibi. He is the founder of Youngscape and a parent himself of teenagers. So over to you, Rachid.
Thank you, Leah. Really excited to be here with everybody all over the world. Yeah, like Leah said, I'm a parent of 3. One teenager actually who's 17. The other one has just turned 20 and she doesn't stop reminding me of that. And the youngest is 10. So quite kind of diverse needs and kind of emotional states during this time. Like Leah said, I was a youth worker for many years before going on to a fundraising career. I've just recently finished a master's in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology in the University of East London. So yeah, I'm based in London. I've also just founded a community interest company, Youngscape, which goes into schools, youth centres, pupil referral units, delivering emotional well-being, strengths-based emotional well-being activities and interventions in schools and community settings. So yeah, pleasure to be here with everyone. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rachid. And then there's me. I'm Leah Black. I'm the founder of the Youth Mentor Coach. I am extremely passionate about youth mentoring and coaching. I had a bumpy journey when I was a teenager, very. And through that, it gave me a passion to work with young people. I've been kind of started off my career in environmental conservation, and that suddenly led to working with communities and young people. And for about 10 years, I've directly worked with teenagers, mostly 11 to 25 years old, mostly teens. I've worked in the UK, Ecuador, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya, and online. I feel like I'm all across the world now. I've worked specifically for charities in different roles as an achievement coach in schools for many years, careers guidance coach, and I'd say most significantly, my main experience came from working in mental health. So I actually worked with teenagers, young people that had quite significant mental health problems that meant that they couldn't go to school. So I helped in an education service, and I also worked with young people that had medical needs, and that was really interesting, and that kind of really made me think about this particular webinar, because I imagine a lot of parents and young people, especially with mental health and those without issues, are struggling quite a lot at the moment. So yeah, I now offer coaching online, and I'm also a student with Coach Arya. So that's me. First off, I would like to ask the audience out there if you could write down at least one challenge you're facing as a parent at the moment of teens, and one win, one success, because we've got to balance this out. And whilst you're writing those down, I would like to ask somebody from the panel to talk about their experience on challenges and successes during this time. So who would like to go first? Thank you, Keith. I thought there was going to be silence then. Cheers.
I'm going to go about it. I don't know if I'm unmuted. Okay, so I've got a kind of an odd story, I guess, that represents a lot of people with disabilities, but I struggled my entire way through school. I didn't, like I said, I didn't get diagnosed with anything until I was 34, and then going back and reflecting, it came to be that it should have been easily identified, but back then, I'm 45 now, back then most ADHD wasn't really out. And so every report card I had was like, in elementary school, I was in French immersion. So it was like, if Keith actually spoke French, he might do well. And then I went into junior high and it flipped from 100% French to kind of 80% French, 20% English. And I was a solid C- student. I spent every summer in summer school right up through grade 12. And by the time I got to grade 12, actually grade 11, I guess, I knew I wanted to work with people. So I went into a human services course and really enjoyed that, helping other people out. But in that class, I got a B. That was the only B I ever got in my entire academic career. And in every one of my other classes, I was a solid C- student. And where it kind of came to be was my friends would making fun of me. It's in the helping field, there's not a lot of guys in it. And I'm a giant. You haven't seen me stand up yet, but I'm 6'7", like 250, right? So they thought I should get into firefighting, and I was easily pulled off direction by other people because I didn't really trust my own instincts, and I had a million different ideas. So for that, you had to take a science. So I took biology 12, walked into the room, looked at the board, was like, nope, not doing this. Walked right back where I was supposed to actually drop the course, and never did drop it. And I didn't get called, and I got called into the principal's office at the end of the year, and we're going through all the courses, and he gets to biology, and I said, well, I'm going to fail. I didn't attend that course. And he told me, well, Keith, given your performance here at this school, it doesn't matter what you do in life, you'll always be a failure. And that was my send off in adulthood, and it followed me like an anchor. When I went off to post-secondary, it took me 6 years to get through two years worth of post-secondary, and was told I wanted to be a social worker, and was told that, based on my academics at that point, that all I would ever amount to be was a tradesperson. The guy told me to be a plumber, and based on my height, I said I never want to be a plumber. But ironically, I am a Red Seal journeyman plumber and a gas fitter. I did accomplish that, and the whole reason I got into this was really the pain that I experienced as a junior high and high school student, and the amount of work that I was attempting to put in and achieving no results was just absolutely excruciatingly painful. And I wanted to, the reason why I started focusing on post-secondary students at that level was, first of all, there's funding in Canada for that. So that was an easy fix. But, and then when I started dipping into the junior high and high school students, it's kind of a forgotten age, right? So there's not really a lot of resources, especially if you get an ADHD diagnosis. At best, they'll say, oh, take your pills and good luck, right? Just make it happen. And it's not that easy. We need a lot of validation. I need a lot of schedule, routine, and everything else. And right now in this COVID-19 thing, like in Canada, I'm sure it's the same where all you guys are, it's all online now. And unless you have a way to focus yourself, it's pretty tough to do. And most parents, to be honest, there's a genetic piece to it. And most parents have it too, so they're more disorganized than their kids are, and it's just this continuous roller coaster. So that's really why I really, we focus so much on the students.
Thank you, Keith. I'm starting to see lots of messages coming into the chat about challenges and successes. So one of the biggest challenges that is popping up is screen time. Screen time, kind of worry about their digital activity, what they're doing online. And some of the positives are, someone said my adolescent girls are like my best friends, time together. But there are more challenges coming out. So I thought we could have maybe a bit of a discussion about how to make them more positive. So screen time, routine, and boredom. So how to deal with boredom with a teenage boy, I think one said. I think if I could just come in there, screen time is something we've all been told to worry about for years and years. And now we're in a situation where screen time is a good thing. So kind of that balance of we've been told it's bad, and now suddenly it's good. And I think that's where this routine and structure is really important. And it is important with teenagers in general. But I don't know if anyone managed to read my article. One of the things I said in there is to create a structure and to create a routine with young people, it's best to actually do this together and speak with them and find out exactly what it is that suits them, that suits their education, their interests, their hobbies, and stick with that, agree those boundaries and agree those times together. Screen time, it's difficult because that is our lifeline at the moment. I don't know, Edyta, as a mum, oh, yeah, your hand went up, whether you could contribute to this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So my son is almost 16 years old and my daughter is 13. They live a very, very active lifestyle, normally. Before we were on the lockdown, we were going from school to sporting events, to practice, to polo school on Saturdays, to, church on Sunday, dinner. It was a constant rush. It never stopped. We were exhausted, angry, fighting. Like, it was not a good situation at all. Like, I was looking forward to traveling to Spain for spring break because I was going to have some time with my children alone. Well, we didn't travel anywhere, but we get to now slow down without rushing, without, having tons of on our schedule, and we can actually sit down together, spend more time as a family. Before, my children literally did not spend any time online other than, school, like necessary things that they had to do for school. So in my house, actually, is a reverse right now because they do get to spend a lot of time online. And I don't mind it because before, literally, my children, when they were little, they only were able to watch TV or play any type of games, online games, during weekends. During the week, there was no time. Once they were a little bit older, things changed. They got their phones. So yes, they were using technology a little bit more. But again, because of our schedules, we never had time for anything. So I am actually welcoming, and I told Leah before, I'm welcoming this time right now because we do spend time together. We cook together, bake. They fight too, don't get me wrong. There is still a lot of it going on, but they are calmer in general. They're happier. My daughter finally told me that she got enough sleep. That, because before she had her first practice at 6 o'clock in the morning, then school all day, and then another practice and another practice. So it was way too much. So to me, it's slightly different. And I know routine is important. I know schedules are important. And I think that everybody just needs to find their way of dealing with this situation. And the way you find it is by talking to your children. Figure it out together. We are in this together, but also the smaller units, the home, the family units, you need to figure this out. Nobody can tell you what's best for you. We can give you different tools, of course, but the most important thing is you need to come up to some kind of a conclusion, what works for you. So that's just my little bit. That's what worked for me. Maybe it will work for others as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Edyta. And that trying to understand your child's point of view as well in the situation and how they're feeling and the emotions that they're experiencing, their fears, their worries, but also the other way around. So, try and help your child understand how you're feeling and not too many worries, but also that you are human as well, and that we will worry and we'll also be happy about certain things and appreciate certain things. And for me, that's a big one, appreciation and gratitude for the times before and those moments that we have now together, that togetherness, and listening skills. Absolutely. Those listening skills are super, super, super important. Actually, spending that time together and trying to understand your child and what it is that suits them, because we're all individuals and every single person is different. So we're not experts in this situation. Nobody is at the moment. The only person who really knows what to do and how they're feeling is that person. So that's our aim as coaches and as parents, as youth workers, is to find out more and to ask those questions, to find out more. How are you feeling? What are you worrying about? You know, what do you miss? What are you looking forward to in the future? And just really holding those conversations with a lot of unconditional positive regard. And for me, it's acceptance as well. You know, we need to aim to move towards acceptance. We cannot change this situation, and we do not have control over this situation at all. And for teenagers in particular, especially if you've got mental health problems as well, is that control is really important, and being able to know what's happening next, and actually to look at what we can control and what we can change. So number one for me in that is our thoughts. We can control what we're thinking. We can. It's hard. We're not used to it, but it's something we can move towards. And we can change how we're looking at this from a different perspective. So language, our use of language. Oh, I hate this. You know, I'm stuck at home. I'm bored. Actually, you're safe at home. Look at what's there. What we can do. And I was thinking before this webinar, when I was a teenager, oh, I can't even imagine how I would have coped as a teenager in this situation. I would have hated it. I would have been a nightmare. My mum would have gone crazy. I would have. And I was thinking, what would I have done? And actually nobody would have known what I would have done unless they'd asked me. So I would have absolutely loved to have had like a theme every week and done art and turned my bedroom into like a special den, rainforest one week or a beach the next, reading, dancing, music. And also I would have wanted my own space, my own 2 hours when no one knocks on the door, no one comes in my room. But the next person would be completely different. You know, they might want to speak to their friends all the time. They might want complete silence. They might want to be online doing gaming, etc. And actually someone said in the questions, is there more than gaming? Yes, there is. I wrote an article recently, Coach Choaibi published it this week, and there's a list of all different types of things that you can do. And if they're not relevant in your country, you can Google search and try and get some inspiration from it. So I'd like to move to Rachid, who is also a parent, and to see from his perspective.
Sorry to interrupt, but before you move on to a different thing, I wanted to ask you, maybe Rachid as well, a question. So you both, you and Edyta, talked about communication a lot, and you just mentioned that you sharing with your teenagers is important, but maybe this is a cultural background, maybe generational from my parents, but there is no way that my parents would ever say what's on their mind. And I've been trying for decades at this point. You know, my parents are old school, they're protective. They would never want me to think like something is wrong. And I'm almost 40 and they still don't want me to think something is wrong. I imagine that my parents aren't the only ones in the world. So what tips do you give for parents, since the parents are in attendance? How do you open up to your kids? I imagine it must be pretty hard for some parents.
Okay, I'll go quickly first. I know my internet connection just went a bit bad, so I hope you can hear me. I think it is just that small step of asking a question. That literally, oh, how are you today? What success have you had today? What are you worried about? Just start a conversation. Just start with that one simple question. You know, maybe even writing something. I have this magnet board on the fridge that's stuck, and write a question down and answer it. Like I would probably put 3 achievements today and kind of note them down. It gets you and your children into that mindset of being open. So yeah, I'm going to think a bit more about that. But Rachid, have you got anything to add in? Or Edyta, anyone? Rachid, you're on mute.
Something good that happened today, you know, something that worries you. You can put all sorts of different questions. I think that having a board like that is very helpful. We have something similar because my daughter was trying to do theme dinners, you know, we've had a couple of those and it worked for a while. So I definitely like that idea, because they may not want to talk, but if they have a chance to write and express themselves this way, that's a great idea. So.
Go ahead, Rachid.
Am I hearable, audible?
You are.
A couple of questions there. I think go back to the question, was it Magda that asked about how to communicate? I think it's the one key thing, is it communication and how we do it. And I think especially with teenagers, there was a question earlier, I think from one of the participants, Darmish, I think, said that he feels his teenager just doesn't care about his feelings. Teenagers, obviously, I think, care a lot more and understand a lot more than we give them credit for, and a lot more that they will definitely let on. And times have changed in terms of parenting. What Magda was alluding to, my parents are very similar. They'd show you love without actually even saying or expressing, but they did it through other ways. And I think that is the priority, is making our children, teenagers, feel safe and loved. It's not always easy. I think we dedicate, in this day and age as parents, a lot more to our children's cognitive and emotional well-being than our ancestors ever would. They would have found these times bewildering. And I think this time during the lockdown and during the pandemic is even a greater time. But I think sometimes we feel guilty as parents, and everybody on this webinar is probably very, you know, passionate and cares about how they're coping with their teenagers, which is why they're here. I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves. And I think we need to be realistic. Right now, it is about focusing on the family dynamics, prioritizing that, positive family dynamics. You've alluded to that, Leah. And it's not about being the best possible parent and to take away that pressure. It's about managing this situation as best as possible. We are in a global pandemic, and I think it's enough sometimes, like you said, Leah, to celebrate little successes that we are keeping safe, we are caring, and we are doing our best to sort of save lives by not going out and spreading the virus. And that's something we should share with our young teenagers and children. What have we achieved today by staying safe? Having that emotional attunement, listening to needs. We do have to open up conversations, even though it's difficult with teenagers, it's difficult enough with parents, having to juggle working from home. A lot of us are doing that. More bills, less sort of income in the home. And just be honest, there's nothing wrong with saying, I feel overwhelmed as well. We're all in this together, this unprecedented sort of uncertain time. What do we need from each other? It's not always easy, especially with teenagers. They just sort of shrug you off. But just keep kind of like checking in on them. And I think sometimes somebody mentioned, it might have been Darwish as well, actually, who said his teenage son doesn't seem to care about his feelings, but is very self-motivated about study. It's honing in on what our children do care about. And sometimes the only conversation I have with my teenage son is if I mention football. It's the only time we kind of like spend a lot of time together, unfortunately. Sad enough is when the football's not on TV anymore, but when a football match is on, we'll sit down and get really passionate about what we're watching and have this nice sort of bond. So it's starting a conversation with what their interests are, what their strengths are. I use humor a lot because my children like it when I'm being silly and funny, and they're quite humorous as people. Some children, curiosity. One of the participants said, you know, study, education. So you make that connection, what you feel they're gonna be engaged with, what conversation, what topic, and then throw in a little, because a lot of the time we only speak to our children or teenagers in particular when we have a little moan or an instruction or a directive, like we need to do this, you know, I'm really busy at the time. Structure, like you said, Leah, is really important. It's, you know, it's cabin fever, isn't it? It's that time and space. You know, if you've got more than one children, like many of us will have, it's, I'm going to do homework with a 10-year-old at this time, talk to the teenager about whatever they're doing at this time, and so just have a little structure. You can't always keep to it, but try and have a little agreement between everyone at household where your space is. You know, I'm going to eat there at this time, you're going to do your homework, you're going to do this, and just have that expectations. I use the holiday hell analogy a lot, Leah, and participants. I don't time we go on holiday and it's a 4-hour drive somewhere and it's that same thing, you're stuck together and it becomes very volatile, sometimes very stressful. But years later, it's those photographs you pick out and you go back and you add meaning and purpose to that situation, even though it was quite challenging and tough at the time. You look back on these times, I think, in a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and add a lot of meaning and purpose to it. And if there's a way of just keeping in check with our children, that if they're using the devices a lot, maybe saying, what are we doing to add meaning and purpose to what they're doing? As in, are they checking in with loved ones, holiday? Are they keeping people that are isolated more than them or feeling more lonely a bit more cheerful? So it's maybe utilizing it in that way. So it's kind of like doing, not ignoring. I think if we try and hide away from there is a crisis, young people will get more anxious. There is a virus going out there and it's quite dangerous, but we can kind of engage with it in a positive way and put positive social media posts, say we are staying safe, when they're in our bit, you can do your bit, and help each other out, where it is a kind of united front bit. So I think it doesn't answer the questions, how do we start conversations? I find the older I'm getting more like my dad, where I love my children, and I know deep down they love me, but we're not sharing that in a communicative kind of, vocal way. But our teenage children do know we love them, and I think it's just checking in with emotional attunement and being in touch with our own emotions. Am I meeting my own needs? I think some self-care as parents as well, we're human. We need to be our best possible selves in terms of enough sleep, me time in the evening or during the day before they get up, do things that me as a parent, I enjoy doing. So I'm in a positive frame of mind when I'm talking with my children. So a bit of self-care and compassion for us as parents as well. And I think then the parenting would come in a little bit more natural and not feel too guilty that we're not doing it perfectly. Because even these parents on social media, see with these post-it notes and doing it all creatively, we're all struggling to a certain extent. Let's remember that, and not set too high expectations for ourselves. Be realistic. We're all coping uncertain times in different ways, but we're all doing it, and celebrate those successes and put family dynamics first before am I being a good parent and working and doing this. I think those family dynamics and being in touch with our needs and making our children feel safe and loved is what should be the priority, and I'm sure we're all doing that. But that's in a rant what I do anyway, and what I would suggest. I think Edyta alluded to, there's no one way of doing it. We all have children with different needs, different ages, but it is self-care and compassion, that showing them that you do love them and care about them. Talking to them individually as well as together sort of like helps. I think if you've got children of different ages and with different needs, kind of family conversations as well as 10-15 minutes individually is massive. Just touching in with them on an individual basis, and they talk and they relate to you on different dynamics that way as well. When they're together, they sort of play up with it on their own sort of with their own dynamics kind of. And I think if you speak to your children individually at different times of the day, that I think helps, just checking in and seeing what's happening. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachid. Thank you. I just very quickly, I was just thinking, if I was a mum, and I'm not a mum, but I work with enough teenagers to feel like I am half the time. But if I was a mum, I think I would literally go up to my kids and I would say, do you know, I'm worried. I'm kind of struggling with this a little bit. It's hard. It kind of makes you feel a bit anxious and nervous, and it's uncertain. But I'm also really happy for nature. Nature's getting a time to breathe, and it's nice to reflect back onto experiences when we went on holiday last year, or when we had that meal, or remember that funny moment. And that's how I feel. Guys, if you want to talk to me about how you're feeling, just know I'm here, because this conversation's really good to have, and just introduce it slowly. You don't want to interrogate teenagers because they'll just think you're after information. I know if I go up to teens and go, right, tell me, what have you been doing? They'll be like, oh, because they're so used to teachers asking them, why haven't you done this? What were you doing this morning? Why didn't you complete your homework? Why are you smiling? Why are you? And teenagers are used to being, I'm sorry to say, interrogated, and when we ask questions, it can make teens quite scared, like, oh, what have I done wrong? So maybe it's best to open up yourself first without those questions, and be a bit vulnerable and put that out there. I know with my situation in my family, I think if we'd sat around the table at night time and actually had dinner, but had a debate. So a fun debate, right? Okay, let's have a debate about anything. It could be about COVID-19, it could be about anything, just to get that conversation flowing, to get to enter the mind of that young person. Rachid, you said something that's quite close to my heart, which is finding meaning and purpose in every single situation. And Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book, and I've forgotten the title, The Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning, or so. Anyway, Google it, Viktor Frankl. And he said that purpose and meaning in every situation is what gets us through and is what's really important. So how useful can you be? What is your mission in this? It's kind of, if we look at it in a coaching kind of perspective, it's reframing. It's reframing the situation, looking at it to gain some sense of control. So I'm going to be a hero. This is my mission. I can be useful by helping so-and-so, by creating this, by all these things. So that meaning and purpose is very important. Keith, I'm wondering if you'd like to jump in at this point. Also, Keith, I've noticed a question from Jennifer, which says, my 9-year-old was just diagnosed with a receptive learning disorder, highly communicative, but trying to take quick instructions from a teacher via internet and trying to understand what is expected brings an eruption of frustration. How do I help her find her grounding so that I can clearly team up with her and not make her feel stuck? And you sprung to mind, Keith. Could you answer that if possible? Thank you.
Yeah, one of the issues I actually had as a youth and into my 20s was something called, how I knew it was something called flash anger. What it's now known as is intermittent explosive disorder, which is an anxiety response, which basically makes people, if they're getting something they're not expecting, right? You go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds, you're yelling, screaming, punching walls, road raging if you're older. And then as soon as you come up, you come right back down, you continue on like there's no big deal. And in youth, specifically in the teenage years, you see it more often than not. That's where it really kind of started erupting with me. I also came from a family with, my dad has some anger issues, so it kind of trickled down. But when that frustration does come about, I totally understand what you're talking about, coming at a 9-year-old perspective, when things aren't perfectly clear and you're trying to interpret it and your mind's going in a million different directions with all the other distractions that are going on, that things can be tricky. So with that being said, that is a piece, specifically now, knowing that they're probably doing it remote. So it's I would imagine she's in an e-learning environment, that 100% she's going to need somebody to sit down with her, decode that information, and then do a step by step by step. I do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and need validation all the way through it. Even to this day, I have to do that for myself. I have a processing disorder. So if I'm giving a huge project that I have to do, and there's a million of them when you run your own company, I have to break everything down. I use multiple tools. My favorite one to use is something called a passion planner. So I have my online calendar, but I also have a planner, and then from the planner, I break it down even further than that. But that's the way you got to do it. You have to literally sit with her, help her understand what the big picture is, and then break everything down into very small bite-sized chunks that she can just tick off. That would be my advice for that. And validate her along the way. I'd imagine, is it Edyta? I can't say your name, but I imagine you probably have some awesome strategies for that as an elementary teacher as well, dealing with a whole herd of them. I only get them one at a time, luckily, so.
Right, so I teach language. Okay, all right. So I teach English as a second language, and I do have some students with different learning needs or emotional needs. Unfortunately, I am not an expert. I think that you have a bigger experience in this than I do, but a lot of it is just patience and spending the time one-on-one. That's what I've seen working the most with some of my students. So I do feel for all the parents who now have to spend time and really try to be parents and teachers and supervisors, and it is very difficult. I have questions from parents when I call my students. I try to have FaceTime with all of my little guys, and sometimes I spend 20 minutes on a writing activity with one of my students, but then I spend another 20 minutes talking to a parent, trying to calm them down, trying to give them tools to work with the kids at home. And to the person who asked the question, I would definitely, Jennifer, I would definitely be reaching out to the teacher a little bit more as well. I'm sure that they have extra points that they can share with you anytime. I know that all of our special education teachers have like certain plans for each of our students who are at home and doing remote learning. So I'm sorry, I cannot give you a particular strategy, except that, you know, contacting a teacher, maybe that person would have something specific for you.
Thank you. I was just I'm thinking as we're going along, so I'm kind of changing the conversation ever so slightly here, but back to communication with our teens. In the article I wrote, I mentioned about a suggestions box. So when I work with teenagers, I always want their suggestions, their input into what we're going to do next term or in the next project, because their voice matters, and it can be really good. And I was thinking, if you can put this into a family situation, so you have literally a box where people can put their worries in, the whole family, parents, kids, put the worries in, put their successes, put some motivational quote, anything, and then you read it out at the same time each week, and that could be like a family get together. And as I said in the article, you will get some funny ones. So it could cause a bit of a funny moment, but it is a way to get you all talking. So if you're worried about starting that conversation, that is another way. Another thing you can do is a quiz. I love it. And when I've got my youth groups, do some kind of quiz, think up some random quiz questions and have a family quiz night. Any way to get that communication started if it's not something that you usually do. And I think as well, some teens don't want to communicate. They do, but they don't. They want to know that you love them. So do make sure you say you love them, no matter how much, even if you get a rejection. You know, I remember as a teenager, I would have been moody no matter what anyone said to me. So, but actually do keep saying you love them, because it means a lot. And I know it does from working with teens. They do pick up on this. They see the love, even if they don't respond to it. So if you send a text message, even to them, even if you're in the same house and they don't respond, it doesn't matter. It means that they've seen it and they've heard you and they know that you're there for them. And that's super important. And I think a lot of teenagers as well find it easier to draw and to write. So make sure there's lots of colouring pens, paper for them to draw their emotions and their feelings. And they don't have to share that with you, but just kind of encourage that side of things. Okay. Would anyone else like to add in anything, any ideas spring into mind, suggestions, stories from your time in lockdown as parents and youth coaches? Edyta, Rachid, Keith. Oh dear, I'm getting the silent treatment. Okay. Okay, we'll take this from a coaching perspective then. Are there any tools or approaches, so coaching tools or approaches, that would be particularly helpful for parents at this moment in time?
Hi, Leah. First of all, I think you need to also unmute people, because I've been muting them because of background noise. But I did want to share something, because I love this thing in every context, and it's set sensations, emotions, and thoughts. And it's literally the first thing I learned during coach training. I'm not a parent, but I use this on a daily basis with myself. And it's this technique that we learn to kind of start the coaching conversation, to check in with our client in the beginning and then kind of check out with our client at the end. But I use it almost as self-coaching, and I think it would be really helpful for parents, for themselves, but also asking their kids. Because, you know, if you just ask me, how do I feel? Ask me 10 times and I will use a different phrase to answer. But, you know, if you ask me kind of how is my body feeling, like what sensations are happening, right? What emotions am I experiencing and what am I thinking? That's still asking me, how do you feel? But it's breaking it down to different different components to kind of raise more awareness into what I'm actually experiencing. So I think it'd be interesting to ask your teen, you know, what sensations, how is your body feeling? What are you thinking about? What emotions are going through you right now versus just, well, how do you feel?
Thank you, Magda. I love SET. I've just been taught it, and it's really, really good. And it's good for us to be able to control our thoughts as well, and to kind of realize that we think from the inside out. It's, who is it, Michael Neal, Inside Out Revolution, sorry, that he wrote about, where we can actually control, you know, our response to what's going out there. It's all about our reaction to what's happening, and that change of emotions that we can have around that, and thoughts. Now, I've noticed, is it Keith, are you trying to join in there? I've unmuted you. I didn't realize you'd all been muted. Sorry.
I was trying to get my door closed because I can hear the TV upstairs, but joys of working from home. No, I did have a comment though on some strategy in terms of helping kids out and be prepared. Like, so the way we coach, I got about 50 students that I coach or I do. I've got 2 other full-time coaches that work with me, and that we're 50 students that we're coaching on a weekly basis. How we do it though is we do like 3 months in advance. And so we basically take whatever you have to work on. What's the long-term goal? So we can really plan from now until the end of the semester, so the end of June, and then lay everything out in something called a passion plan. I bring it up again. This is my version of a textbook. I should make money off these guys because I use it so much. But the planner goes from 6 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. It has a personal to-do list, a work to-do list, big empty space. You write whatever you want, and you can see your week in one shot. And so what we do is we take all the big projects, lay them out over the next 3 months so you can see what's coming on an easy to do scale. And then on a week-to-week basis, we put all the big projects down, and then we treat it like a school day. So if you typically go to school from 9 to 3, we schedule off from 9 to 3 what specifically are you going to accomplish during that period of time. And with the fact that everybody's on this e-learning environment, and most students here in Canada are getting somewhere an hour to maybe 2 hours a day worth of homework, but there are still big, long there's projects that they have to work on, especially the high school kids that we have now, grade 11 and 12, who are really prepping, especially grade 12 in specifically, I'll pick on those guys because they are prepping for that post-secondary transition. And if you go into it saying just go kind of willy-nilly, like, hey, do your 1 hour homework a day and don't really prepare yourself for anything else in the future. Something I was just thinking about the other day is that, you know, this all started in May. So you've got 7 months before you go into that post-secondary transition in this like loosey-goosey, do whatever you want, no structure, no nothing kind of atmosphere. And whether you like it or not, as soon as you hit university, there is structure. It may not, and the structure that comes from it is not that, you know, tailored 9 to 5 day. You have 1 hour of online learning and you've got 4 hours of homework. You have to be able to develop those executive functioning skills to be successful at that point of view, regardless of what school you're at. So from this point of view, is what I'm saying is, if as far ahead as you can plan ahead, and then on a week-to-week basis, figure out what the big tasks that have to be done during the week. Also identify, like, when are the kids most alert too. So if they do only have 2 hours of homework a day, Don't expect them to get up at 9. Maybe some kids are early morning risers. Most of mine aren't, right? Don't expect them to get up at 9 o'clock and pop that work off. Just ask them, when do you feel most alert? Most kids usually is somewhere between 10 and 12. I'm sure the teachers in the room can identify after lunch. They're like dozing off, and all the workshops I do is the same kind of thing. 10 to 12 is kind of a sweet spot, but to be honest, every single kid is different. Some kids are like, I'm not a parent, but my girlfriend has 2 teenage boys that are in the house who are on this school plan, and the 17-year-old stays up till 4:30 in the morning playing Xbox, right? Gets up at 4:30 the next day, does his homework from 4:30 to 6:30, and then goes down and plays Xbox for another 10 hours straight, right? So it's what we're doing with them, and what I'm actually doing again with all my students who have fallen into this quick transition, is just coming back to that schedule. You have to have it. No schedule routine. You can basically like kiss success goodbye, in my opinion. But that, again, I'm coming from a disability angle where I know from that's kind of where my expertise are. If I don't have anything written down, the likelihood of me achieving it or achieving something and feeling like I've been productive by the end of the day, week, whatever, is about 0. I have these things currently. I started doing these 8 years ago. I can tell you what I did every single day at every single hour for the last 8 years. Guaranteed nobody in this room can do that unless you're keeping your own stuff. And it also I use it too, because a big thing with disabilities is that we experience a lot of limiting beliefs. I'm stupid, I'm not getting enough accomplished, why can't I be like everybody else and everything else, right? And so a lot of the time when stress comes, again, it's an anxiety response. So when stress comes, the first thing we do is go inwards and attack ourselves. We say some of the nastiest language to ourselves internally, right? About, why can't we be like everybody else, essentially, right? And so the benefit is, well, if you're tracking it, and we will need help. I have 3 coaches. I have a personal coach, I have a business coach, and I have a positive psychologist that I currently work with to just keep me moving forward, right? And so when it gets to that point where those negative or limiting beliefs starts trickling in, then I can come back and be like, man, look at all the stuff you've done during the day, right? You've accomplished, most days I probably talk to anywhere between 10 to 12 people a day on average. And, and then I can get back into that positive mindset where I can keep trucking on and feeling like I'm contributing not only to myself, but to the greater good as a whole, I suppose.
Thanks for sharing, Keith. Thank you. And just want to say one brief thing, because I know, Rachid, you had your hand up. But for me, I think a lot of young people in this moment of uncertainty are going to be struggling to think of the future as well. That's going to be a tough one. It's like, what does this future include? When is this virus going to stop? What's going to happen? So I think thinking of the future can be a bit tough. And on that same note, motivation, it might not be the right time as well, I feel, with young people to like give them loads of motivational, you can do this. And even for you as parents, that kind of forward thinking, motivation, think of all the things that you can do in the future. I feel that could be a little bit more harder to deal with at the moment. And everyone's going to deal with this differently anyway. And do you know what? It is okay not to feel okay as well, because a lot of people are going to be feeling like not positive, not motivated, and it is okay not to feel okay. But this is temporary. It is going to change. This is only a short period of time. And Keith, when you were talking about that routine, that structure again, I worked with a lot of young people who couldn't attend mainstream school due to a mental or medical condition. And we would phase back into education. I think this big gap from education is going to require that phasing back into normality. One, I'd say, let kids be kids, let them be. sometimes, you know, at this very moment, they're like, yes, I can hibernate for the first time. I've always dreamt about hibernating, and now I can. I can have a break. I can have a chill out time. So a little bit of let kids be kids, but also that structure of at least 3 hours, I would say. I don't know, this is not expert advice, but 3 hours of education is what we'd aim for, and then build on that back then. And some alone time with education as well, and phase them back into school. And the next stage of all this is probably going to be your kids worried about going back to school and even getting a bit of social anxiety, or the opposite, kids desperate to get back to school and see their friends, but to be prepared for that. So Rachid, I don't know if you'd want to add on to that.
Yeah, am I on mute? You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it was just going back how we could use coaching. I think with coaching your own children, it can be a little bit of a challenge if it's kind of suddenly we're going to do a coaching session. Obviously, it's not going to be very realistic, and children will pick up very easily if dad's not in dad mode. But I think if we keep it in mind as a mindset or as an approach when we're communicating, we have a coaching approach in our own mindset, as in we're going to look at solutions focused kind of conversations if they have certain worries or anxiety. A good model is a very basic coaching model, a GROW model, GROW. So the goal, can't remember what they are was for now, the resources that you have for that goal, the obstacles, and then the will or the way to kind of go forward with that goal. You don't have to stick to that rigid. I think even sometimes goals, like you said, we have to be real. Are they going to have specific goals? It might be, I like using the word intentions. If somebody has an intention to just be less stressed today, or a bit more engaging with his siblings or whatever, that intention, how we're going to go about it. And then just talk about what resources I could help you support with that, who else, and let them lead, because people usually think of coaching as the coachee, in this case would be your children, are the experts of themselves. And I think that's quite empowering for children, teenagers in particular, if you give them that kind of responsibility of, I'm going to coach you, but you know yourself better. You're the expert of yourself. How do you feel you could fulfill that intention, that positive intention, or that goal? What resources do you have available? Who could you fall back onto? Who could you use? Your skills, what strengths do you have to fulfill that? And that can be really empowering for teenagers in particular. We've had this conversation, you and I, Leah, about the balance between mentoring and coaching. And some people like to kind of define it quite explicitly. And for you, you've said something important in the past to me about a blend of both is kind of like where you can actually hit a sweet spot with young people in particular when you're working with them. So I think a blend of mentoring and coaching. So if we define mentoring as being the mentor, being the parent is the expert of whatever you're discussing or dealing with, and coaching is the young person, the child that is the expert. A blend of, when I'm speaking to my 10-year-old, he needs guidance on his homework. I'm mentoring him. I'm giving him my expert advice, my life experience. Whereas with the older ones, maybe they need a bit more solutions focused. They want to go somewhere and it's motivational. But then again, I was just having a thought as Keith was speaking, is when I'm talking to my 20-year-old, she's quite specific in, I want to find this course or this work experience or this internship. And I would become more of a mentor in that parenting role conversation with her. It's more like, well, I did this in the past and I know this colleague who has this, and I could actually check out and send you this link or put you in touch with this. So that's more of a mentoring. But I think a blend of both is usually positive. And I think with the mindset of being a positive role model, and you mentioned unconditional positive regard, which some people just find a bit of a cliche, but if you're actually going to, again, step into a different mindset in your own self, and it's checking in with your own emotions and your own kind of flow of thought and how you're going to approach things. If you're going to have unconditional positive regard as much as possible, it's not always easy with your children, where you really appreciate where they're coming from. That's their reality. Those are their experiences. If I as a parent feel my child is having no regard for my emotions, I have to kind of hold back on that and just kind of hear it from their point of view. So I'm going to have that unconditional regard for the positive regard. And then talk that through. So it becomes a coaching session, but it's more of a real humanistic, person-centered kind of approach to being with your children. Coaching is offering a safe space to let them vent even. It doesn't have to be always goals-focused, solutions-focused. It could be just a conversation where you're going to adopt a coaching mindset, where I'm going to hold you unconditional positive regard, give you a safe space to really kind of say it how it is, and I'm going to be as honest as I can and kind of listen to you and hone into what your needs are. And I think that's really empowering for young people, especially if it's strengths based and you're using, honing in when you go to the R section of Grow, what resources do you have? It's about their own personal resources, and that's empowering because they feel confident, they build self-esteem. But yeah, a coaching, mentoring approach can be really good, can be really useful actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachid. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And I like that model and that perspective, because we've had a lot of conversations about mentoring, coaching, and also well-being. That is something that you've done a lot of research on as well, about youth well-being. And I think something that both you and I kind of talked about when we talked about well-being is compassion. That love, that showing of love, however you can. There's no one secret kind of task or answer to that. Just saying that you love them, show you're there, check in, and also self-compassion. Put yourself first too, as well as your children. We put our children first a lot, but don't forget yourself, because children and teenagers are very, very good at picking up on when you're upset as a parent, when you're worrying, when you're anxious, and they won't potentially tell you that, but they'll be internalizing it and thinking about it and worrying about you and how you are, because they also love you a lot. But because they're a child, they haven't learned all these communication skills. And actually, communication skills isn't something that we teach children in schools as much as I wish we did. That's something I advocate for. We don't learn one of the most important things that we need as humans, which is to communicate. So this is a good time to start teaching your kids about good ways of communicating. And Rhonda, you have asked a question in the Q&A about how do you talk to your kids if you have lost or are likely to lose your job? And for me, this, it is difficult, but they will know something's wrong. They will already know that you're worried about this, and they're probably already thinking similar things, especially teenagers. I can't talk about little kids because I haven't worked with them. And that open conversation, is age appropriate. Open conversation for me is the best thing. Oh, whatever your child is called, this time's difficult, it could have an impact. How do you feel about that? There is a chance that I might lose my job, or there's a chance that I might not. This is a possibility. How does that make you feel? And kind of slowly bringing in that conversation. But if this is very new to them and they haven't been asked these questions before, maybe step it slowly and introduce it slowly. And also, Rhonda, you asked about how do you talk to your kids if you as a family do know someone who comes down with the virus. So I think one of the first things is, does your child know the facts about the virus? There is so much fake news, false information, scary stuff out there on the news, on social media. So I'd really recommend you actually do get the facts. In the LinkedIn Parenting with a Coaching Mindset group, I've shared some information in there. There's a book that you can download for children that explains coronavirus a bit more. There's some videos, etc. So just to first explain and check in that they know what the virus is and how it might affect people. And then have an open conversation about it. How does it make them feel? How it makes you feel? Yeah, just that open. Edyta, I'm wondering from your point of view as a teacher and a parent, what you could provide an answer for on that.
That's very true, what you've said. I think that making sure that the kids know that they are safe, that's the bottom line. They can find all sorts of information online. They talk to their friends, they hear, not in my son's school, but at a different high school, there was unfortunately a death of a 16-year-old student. He had some, of course, my son was talking to his friends and they found out early on that the boy had some kind of underlying issues. And then they sort of, they were talking amongst themselves. They were trying to figure out what happened, how it happened that the boy passed away. But they all basically reassured themselves. They were talking about how, they are healthy, they are physically healthy, emotionally healthy. They are staying at home. They are taking precautions. The parents are staying home. They are not seeing one another. They actually were planning some kind of drive-by birthday, which are very popular right now. And we've done it as a family. We have done it for a friend's daughter, but I was the one who was driving with my kids in my car. So there was no other children around, but the boys were planning doing it for somebody else. And my son said, oh, I'm going to wear a mask and gloves, but I'm like, no, you will be with other boys in the car. No, you cannot go. I said, because you don't know who they saw, who are they hanging out with. We are not doing this. And Max did agree. He's like, you know what, you're absolutely right. I'm like, we'll wait. I know it's difficult, but we can wait a couple more weeks. We have to for our sake and for everybody else's sake. My kids worry about grandparents who are in Poland. Both sets are in Poland, the family in Poland as well. They do worry. That's something that comes up quite often. They worried about, like Leah said, that there are parents who are financially not very stable, and especially in these times, which are very scary. Their reassurance is very important. There are ways, parents can reach out to school districts. There is help, financial and nutrition help. Parents, families can receive lunches, breakfasts from food pantries, from schools. Again, financial support from different schools. Contact if you are in this kind of situation, contact your school, contact either the principal or the social worker. Reach out to people. I've said it before, you are not alone. You are in the household. Yes, you are the small unit, but there are many other people in your situation. So reach out to others, start asking questions. Don't think that, because of your situation, you just have to figure it out by yourself. No, there's plenty of help. And also, this is also the time where your friends appear, whether or not they're true friends, because there are small things that we can do for others, whether it is a conversation, whether it is, some groceries dropped off at the front door. Any small gesture is very much appreciated. So if you are the person who is a little bit more stable, like myself, I am a teacher. I do remote teaching from home, but I do receive a paycheck. And my children know that, yes, financially we are stable, we are fine, we will be okay. But they also see that I do things for others. So they learn from me that being empathetic and being caring and sharing is something that we all need to do. If we are at a little bit better position than others, then do something for others. Of course, be still safe. What happened was my daughter basically told me not to go to my school district anymore because she found out that the town that I teach at had a high number of cases, of COVID cases. And she knew that I was going and delivering lunches to my students. And she's like, Mom, I worry about you. Please don't do it. And I said, you know what, this is, I think that this is a good idea, because I did not want her to worry. She knew I had a mask. She knew, washing hands, all that, all the precautions, but she still worried. And because of my child, I said, you know what, you are right. I've done my duty in this case. But fortunately enough, during the same time, my school decided that it was too dangerous for teachers, to deliver lunches, and then they have just a different system going on. It's tough, but again, it's like, take a deep breath, think about it. There are things that you can do to help others, help yourself, and again, there is no one answer. This is the part that I think we are all struggling. We want one solution. There is no one solution. We just have to figure out what works for us. And I'm sorry, I'm not being maybe too helpful, although I did get, thank you, Chris, for the compliment. Like I said, I'm looking from this perspective of a teacher, and a very caring teacher who really works very close with the families. And the one good thing that I see happening in my place of work is the community building is even bigger or better right now than it's been before. Parents are so grateful for every little thing, for a phone call, for the groceries, for lunches, for any type of help you can provide to them. It's truly amazing. Literally, I've been calling even the parents who are not the parents of my children in my program, but just because I know them, because I've encountered them, over the years, and it is just so nice to hear from you. See, so even a phone call to somebody else, it makes that other person feel better, but it also lifts you up. So like little human things, basically. So I'm sorry, I'm just like keep on going and going.
Don't say sorry. That was so helpful. And I think everyone agrees how helpful that really is. So thank you. And I think what you picked up on there as well, I'd like to continue with, which is teenagers like to feel useful, like to feel proud, like they've made an achievement, they've had an impact during this, a positive one. So to give them a task or something where they can help others is a really good thing for them. And I think Magda and I have been talking about something that she saw on Twitter about time capsule. So it's brilliant. It's a fantastic idea. Who's the guy? I better say thank you. So there's a guy called @KevinIsHistory on Twitter, and he said, what one item from the COVID-19 era would you suggest to a historian who wants to exhibit about what's been going on now 100 years from now? And I think little things like that to get young people to think about what this moment might mean in the future as well for history is kind of a really, really good idea. We did ask parents to ask their teenagers and children, what's the one thing that they'd recommend for a time capsule. So it'd be really good if you could share that on LinkedIn, on the group as well. I think that's such a good idea, and you can expand on that in that article that I wrote. There's lots and lots of different things that you can put into a time capsule: photographs of now, stories, your emotions and feelings, etc. So it's kind of making the most of this time together as well, and this time to have these new experiences. Oh, Edyta, yes, please go.
So I just shared a Google Doc, something that we've had at my school that was shared with teachers and parents. I hope it works. If somebody could click on the link and let me know if it works. You can print it and then have your kids work on it at home. That's just another activity along the same lines as what you were saying. It's just for younger students, maybe.
Thank you. And Keith, because we've only got 15 minutes remaining, I would like to pick your brains, if possible, about, I've worked with teenagers with ADHD, and I know that there's a lot of energy and they want time and that the structure as well. And this could be a bit more challenging for parents who may have teenagers with ADHD. Have you got any suggestions at all, and tools or guidance for those particular parents, if possible?
I was just thinking about some of the noise counseling things that you can use. So one of the tools that I use, and this is something that you can use, either encourage your kids to download or the phones or the computers, or use it yourself to monitor them. But there's two tools that we use. One's called Rescue Time, and another one, I was just looking at another one's called Time Doctor. And basically what it does is tracks how much time is being spent either on your phone and or your computer. The thing I like the best about Rescue Time, for a small fee, I don't know, it might be like $5 total to buy this app, but with Rescue Time you can actually nuke distracting websites, for example. So if your kid has to write, you know, I'm talking more teenage years than the younger years at this point, but you know, grade 11 and 12 and up. But if your kids have assignments that they have to get done, you can actually go in and you can nuke all of the distracting websites. So if it's just focused on Google Docs, most of them use Google Classroom, so it's just docs that they need to use, you can do it so it just watches that. The other thing I do it too, though, it also tracks how much time you're spending on everything. And that could be really, really interesting because the kids have no clue how much time they're spending, neither do parents, because we're not, you know, you can't monitor at any given time. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I used it with some of the guys that I coach that admittedly have some screen addiction, which is pretty much every single one of them, and track how much time you're actually spending. And if you can put it in perspective, I did it on myself last week in the midst of this I guess in the midst of this COVID stuff. I'm trying to also monitor myself, and I haven't used it personally in a little while, but I was like, I'll check it on my phone. I was looking at Facebook, for example, and on one day during a work day, I spent 4.5 hours on Facebook. No idea I even did that. Zero clue, right? I'm just posting things to it. I have my own Facebook lives that I do and was responding back and forth to people. I was like, what a waste of freaking time. And I'm wondering why at the end of the day, I can't get to the admin stuff that I have to do, like building my website and starting another business that I'm trying to do. And I'm like, I'm so efficient because I think I'm working. But Big Dizzy, one of my business coaches said to me, is difference between being busy and business, right? and what I found last week, and I also noticed that I was kind of doing it. I was like, man, I'm getting kind of distracted and really not pushing the needle of where I needed to go. And that's what I was falling in. I was definitely into busyness, but not really producing what needed to be done. So it was kind of a neat tool that I use. Some of the other, like I specialize a lot in assistive technology and accommodations. So it's all really individualized on particular individuals' needs, but there's certain things you can still use to speed up if you do need to get through things. Like we use a lot of speech to text technology. A lot of the textbook stuff now you can get on PDF, and you can use a program called Premier Tools, which I really, really like actually. So yeah, you can get your textbook on PDF, plug it into Premier Tools, and then people are like, well, I don't really like that text to speech technology because it sounds a little, you know, robotic. But there's a gem in this little program because there's a search function. And if you have to find that one particular thing that you're trying to find, and if I think of myself before the internet came out and I was flipping through the frickin' index, trying to remember how to spell a word because I have some processing problems, and spending all that time wasted away and then getting frustrated and giving up. Premier Tools, you just go in, Google basically like Google for your textbooks and bring you directly where you need to be. Another thing is using like noise canceling headphones, for example. So just blocking off that distracting, any distractions that are kind of coming upon you. Those are kind of the key ones, but it'd be really interesting. Yeah, have the parents chuck on that Rescue Time, and you really have it just running in the background of any of your computers, your tablets, and even their phones, and they probably wouldn't even, I guarantee they wouldn't even notice anybody has a disability, if you look at my phone, it's so full. I think I use 4 apps on a regular basis. I probably have about 4,000. I'm not even kidding. It barely runs. But yeah, chuck it on your kids, and not chuck it on the computers, not to monitor, because nobody likes to be monitored. We hate top-down approach. That's the other piece too, is like, if we're feeling like we're supportive, you are going to get eons more of us than if you top down us. So if you come as a domineering parent and why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you accomplishing that? And you're not doing your homework. You're not going to get, I refrain from swearing. You're not going to get anything out of us. But if you approach us as like, you're approaching us on the equal, and we're working together through this in order to reach a common goal and praising the crap out of us all the way along, you'll be successful. And I want to speak too to like just a point of reference. So when the COVID-19 hit, it was right around, in Canada anyways, it was right around spring break. So the kids had to go back right after. And in that first 2 weeks, out of the 50 students that we were coaching, over 70% of them all wanted to drop out. They're like, no, we quit. It's too hard. We're not going to do this. I give up. And proud to say, I've just hit the end of the semester. Actually, today is the end of the semester. We lost 1 out of 50, right? And the grades were just trickling in this week, especially my guys, some hard tickets, I got to say, who are easy to quit. The grades have just trickled in. The lowest grade that any of my students got was an 86. So I'm getting 86s, 87s, and I got another guy came in with a 92. And and that is specifically from that. I just met them where they're at. I'm like, why do you want to quit, man? You got a month to go. You just invested 2.5 months, and you're going to quit with 3 weeks? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I just kind of stretched out my classic coaching sessions where I meet same day, same time every week. I said, let's just spread it out. Why don't you just text me? Every day you text me like 3 positive things, 3 things that went well today. And I'm getting those coming in now. Every day I'm getting and I encourage people to go out and do something outside. So some self-care, right? So, I get pictures from drives they've taken and people they've talked to, and it's just kind of a nice way to kind of wrap up the day. I do it myself too at 9 o'clock every night. I have a gratitude alarm that goes off on my phone, and I verbalize exactly what I'm grateful for, and I also write it down. So every day, even as crappy as the days are, and we all know they are kind of crappy right now, I'm going to bed in a positive mindset. And I think that's really the piece here that a lot of kids have to focus on, and parents too, is just like connect. Let's focus on what's going well instead of focus on it's so hard to not go down the rabbit hole of what's terrible is happening in the world. Let's focus on what's going well, and you can move the needle forward.
Thanks, Keith. I love that. Gratitude, 3 positive things a day that everyone's experienced. And also when you said no kids want anyone to talk down to them. No one wants to feel hard done by ever. It's not gonna work. And that I've talked a lot about this in the past, about consequences and boundaries. So boundaries and consequences. Teenagers want boundaries. They want them. It helps them to feel safe, and it helps them to know those limitations. But what the key is to kind of agree those boundaries together. So, and that can go with house chores as well, and the structure at home, the daily routine, but also get the teenager to tell you what the consequence will be if those boundaries are broken, if they don't stick to that routine, because they're not going to then feel hard done by or spoken down to. It's more a negotiation, it's a partnership. And we always talk as coaches as partnering. It's the same thing. Partner with your children, with your teenagers, and then no one's going to feel hard done by. There's going to be no kickoffs, as I always said. I'm from Liverpool originally, near Liverpool, the Wirral. And we'd always have kickoffs because I was right and you were wrong, and you were right and I was wrong. And actually it's because we don't know what the other person wants to do, what the other person likes, what the other person is feeling. Be curious. Try and find out the other person's perspective, even if that's your child. it's surprising sometimes how much we think we know someone when we don't. Every person is unique. Every person is their own person. And especially a teenager who's currently trying to find out who they are, trying to find out their values and their identity and feeling like they want to belong. They're growing up really quick. So ask them how they're feeling, ask them about the boundaries that we should put in place and the consequences if they go against them. And Chris mentioned 30 years ago, we didn't have Facebook, but we gossiped and traded jokes a lot. This made me think of something that I always do. What would I have wanted when I was a teenager? So I kind of ask you that, but also that's a really good conversation starter with your teenagers and your kids. Teenagers are curious and they really want to know about their family heritage, your life, the life of their grandparents. And what a good way to start about going, when I was a teen, if this had happened, this is how I would have felt. This is what I would have wanted, how hard it might have been, what would have helped you when you were a teenager, what would have made things easier, and what you would have wished your parents had done for you, and kind of have that conversation and get talking about that. And I think that'll really help with those conversation starters. Just to finish off, we've got 5 minutes. I wondered if Edyta and Rachid, if you have any top tips or one key message for parents out there. Whoever wants to go first can jump in.
I love my children there's nobody more important than my children in the entire world to me. And I think we all became parents because, you know, we wanted to have kids, but, you know, we wanted the future to be even better for them than, you know, what we've experienced maybe. And I just say, enjoy this time with your kids. Just make the most positive experience you can. I know it's not always the easiest, but just be happy. You know, tomorrow, who knows what will happen tomorrow. Enjoy today. Enjoy this time. When I did some coaching a couple years ago, I was introduced to mindfulness and this living in the moment and being in the present. And I love it. I love it. And then that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying not to think what's going to happen later on, because, you know, we will have to find a new normal. We are not going back to what it used to be. Life is not going to be the same, probably. We'll have to find a new normal. But for now, just enjoy the time with your kids. That's just my little bit. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on here. And that's so true. Enjoy that time. It's not often that we get this much time together as families. So embrace it very much. And Rachid, do you want to finish on a final note?
Yeah, I would just say at a time where we're juggling not only parenting, but probably a lot of us working from home and doing everything, is not to be too hard on ourselves, a lot of self-compassion on ourselves first and foremost, as well as our children. Positive family dynamics are the key. Everything probably hopefully fitting around that, and just make sure our children, however hard it may be, are feeling safe and loved. I think that's the main thing. And to add meaning and purpose kind of to it, how would we want to remember this time when it's over? I think when you keep that in perspective, it always helps people kind of feel engaged and connected and safe. I think that's the main thing.
Thank you very much, everyone. Keith, Rachid, Edyta, Coach Arya, Nishmita for being in the background, helping with the questions. I really, really appreciate everyone that's come along, and all of the audience out there. Join us on LinkedIn, Parenting with a Coaching Mindset, to continue this conversation. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye, everyone. Stay safe and stay well and enjoy your time together. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.